A fortune teller was reading a woman's fortune when she suddenly pointed behind him, confused. To his shock, blue liquid was seeping from the wall. Sensing trouble, the fortune teller hurriedly dismissed the woman and rushed to open a hidden safe under his seat. Inside, a jar meant to contain a demon had cracked open. The demon had likely escaped long ago. What the fortune teller didn't realize was that the woman herself was the leader of the demons. He frantically called another fortune teller, urging him to contact the demon hunting master, Wadam, but no one could reach him. The demon hunt quickly began, but it took a twisted turn when they discovered that two doctors were actually demons in disguise, working with a fortune teller pretending to be a patient in the hospital. Unfortunately, their powers had been sealed, leaving them defenseless against the demons' relentless attacks. Helpless, they could only watch as the demons smashed through the window and escaped. With no other options, the three ancient Taoist sorcerers gathered at a museum to perform a grand ritual. Suddenly, the figures in a painting sprang to life. The truth was revealed: they had come to summon Jeon Woo-chi, a Taoist master they had sealed away 500 years ago. The reason for Woo-chi's sealing traces back 500 years. He openly mocked the emperor yet managed to escape unscathed. Not only did he flaunt his power in front of the emperor, but he also humiliated him. Woo-chi first posed as a divine envoy and brazenly asked why no beauties had been sent to greet him. The emperor, clueless about the envoy's intentions, made a careless remark that led to his royal dignity being shattered. But the emperor's pride wasn't something to be trifled with. In the days that followed, Uchi paid a heavy price, even dragging his teacher into the ordeal. He went on to recklessly smash the emperor's prized possessions, all while arrogantly showing off his masterpieces to the emperor.
기저 주인 없는 빈말은 인간의 고독함을 상징하는 것 같습니다만.
어리석구나.
예.
이 도사 전우치가 타고 갈 말이니.
예, 도사 전우치가 타고 갈. 망나니 전우치?
Despite his rogue appearance, Uchi was a skilled sorcerer who could summon wind, call forth rain, and travel 1,000 miles in a day. He was also known as a Taoist who robbed the rich to help the poor. Once, he even appeared in the emperor's dream, urging him to donate a vast sum of gold to aid disaster relief. But even a Taoist like Uchi couldn't resist competing for the title of the greatest sorcerer. According to ancient texts, whoever possessed the demon-revealing mirror and the bronze sword would be the top Taoist in the land. Wuchi's main goal in visiting the palace that day was to steal the emperor's treasure, the demon-revealing mirror. After Wuchi left, the emperor was furious and ordered that this trickster pay a heavy price. Now that Wuchi had the mirror and knew the bronze sword was in the hands of a powerful noble, he planned to complete the task assigned by this noble in exchange for the sword. The task was to kidnap a beautiful woman. Through his assistant Rangi's investigation, Wuchi learned that the woman would be heading to the mountains that night to honor her ancestors. Just as Wuchi was about to make his preparations, he was surrounded by Taoist sorcerers sent to capture him. However, these sorcerers were no match for Wuchi, and after a few rounds, they were easily defeated. As Wuchi bragged about being the greatest Taoist, one determined sorcerer pulled out a bow and arrow, intending to strike him when he wasn't looking. In the nick of time, Rangi intervened and snatched the bow away, saving Wuchi from certain death. But this very bow would soon bring Wuchi great trouble. To save time, Wuchi had Rangi transform into a swift horse to carry him to find the woman. That evening, as the woman passed by a temple, Wuchi snuck into the group escorting her. While Rangi was discussing when to carry out the kidnapping, a group of bandits suddenly jumped out, startling the guards. Rangi quickly transformed back into human form to deal with the bandits, leaving Wuchi to kidnap the woman. But to everyone's surprise, Wuchi found himself charmed by the woman instead.
혹시 저를
예.
혹시 저를 마음에 두시고?
예.
Her flirtatious advances caught him off guard, leaving him momentarily stunned. Captivated by her unique fragrance, Wuchi found himself lost in the moment, signaling to Rangi not to interrupt his newfound romance. But Rangi was infuriated while he was busy fighting off enemies. Wuchi was indulging in flirtation. His anger dissipated, however, when he saw how beautiful the woman was, and he quickly changed his demeanor, greeting her with a smile. He even bent down to take in her scent.
네 만나서 운 좋은 줄 알아야.
After delivering the woman to the noble, they learned that he had given the bronze sword as a birthday gift to Judge Li. Realizing he had been tricked, Uchi was grateful he had a backup plan. The nobleman untied the sack, revealing the woman, who, upon seeing the old and unattractive man before her, was terrified. She collapsed on the bed, desperately trying to escape. Suddenly, a talisman stuck to the widow's back caught the old man's attention. As he removed it, the beautiful woman was instantly replaced by an old woman. The nobleman was stunned, and the old woman was equally panicked. Just then, Woochi entered, demanding to know the whereabouts of the bronze sword. What they never expected was that the old man was actually a rat demon. To make matters worse, the flute Woochi had snatched from the demon was no ordinary instrument. It was the prophecy flute, a powerful artifact from the celestial realm that led to Woochi being sealed away for 500 years. Legend has it that the prophecy flute was created by a great deity to seal away demons. If played for 3,000 days and nights, it could suppress the demonic nature of all creatures. However, 3 foolish gatekeeping sorcerers, unable to endure the solitude, prematurely opened the gates of the celestial prison on the 2,999th day, releasing the demons. This mistake caused the deity, whose power was absorbed by the flute, to suffer a backlash, falling to the mortal world and being reincarnated. Anyone who possesses the prophecy flute could command the demons, and those 3 gatekeepers were stripped of their powers and sent to the mortal world for penance. Now, Woochi had unknowingly come into possession of the flute, unaware that its presence would bring him nothing but regret. Woochi battled the rat demon for 300 rounds, fighting from the ground to the rooftop and then to the walls. The rat demon managed to reclaim the flute, but just as Woochi subdued the demon, something unexpected happened. The rat demon blew the flute, emitting a sound so unbearable it was almost impossible to endure. Woochi snatched the flute back, but he was a moment too late. A hidden rabbit demon awakened, shook off the humans nearby, and quickly escaped. Rainey handed Woochi the stolen bow and arrow, leaped onto the rooftop, and shot an arrow at the fleeing demon. However, the arrow missed, causing more chaos instead. Meanwhile, the 3 gatekeeping sorcerers, who had been banished to the mortal world, sought redemption by capturing the demons and returning the prophecy flute to the celestial realm. They enlisted the help of the famous Taoist, Master Wadam, to capture the demons and retrieve the flute. Passing through the area, they noticed the chaos caused by the demons. Wadam quickly subdued the creatures, leading to the earlier encounter. Upon learning that Woochi had battled the demons, they realized that the prophecy flute must be in his possession. Their next task was to find Woochi. On the other side, Woochi remained blissfully unaware that his days of ease were numbered. Rainey informed their teacher about the flute. The teacher, sensing impending doom, glanced at the sleeping woman and then at the flute, feeling an ominous premonition.
또 그 거울인지 검인지를 찾아다녔더냐? 너는 인간이 될까 해서 따라다녔고.
He opened Woochi's door just as Woochi awoke from a nightmare. What Woochi didn't realize was that this nightmare was a foreshadowing of events to come. The teacher, as if giving his final advice, warned Woochi that to become a truly powerful Taoist, he must abandon all distractions. This lesson would later prove invaluable in Woochi's quest for revenge. Inevitably, the time came. Wadam and the 3 sorcerers arrived at a small temple. They crossed through a landscape painting and found the place where Woochi and his teacher practiced their Taoist arts. Rainey eyed the 3 strangers who suddenly appeared, telling them to leave immediately. But before he knew it, an arrow was pressed against his neck. Wadam instantly recognized Rainey as a dog demon. Woochi tried to stand up for Rainey, but in no time, Wadam had him under control, forcing him to reveal the whereabouts of the prophecy flute. Watching his disciple get disciplined, Woochi's teacher wasn't angry. Instead, he hoped they would understand that only by becoming strong could they avoid being bullied. He then invited Wadam inside for tea. Once inside, Wadam demanded the teacher hand over the flute, but the teacher quickly saw through Wadam's facade. Sensing he wasn't a good person, to prove he wasn't a demon, Wadam cut his hand with an arrow, showing red blood. A tense struggle for possession of the flute followed, played out through intense glances and subtle movements. The flute hovered between them until the pressure became too much, and it snapped in 2, leaving each with half. Though Wadam was dissatisfied, he couldn't show his frustration in front of the 3 gatekeeping sorcerers, so he left. Afterward, the teacher instructed Rainey to escort the woman away quickly and told Woochi to stay home and reflect on his actions by standing on his head. He also warned Woochi not to get too close to the woman, hinting at the reasons why.
네가 죽을 것을 저 여인이 안내를 하는구나.
Worried that the woman would face trouble when she returned home, Uchi secretly followed her to ensure her safety. But this act of defiance would haunt him in the days to come. Uchi advised the woman not to get too close to the horse, hinting that it wasn't trustworthy.
안 씻어도 되는데 깨끗해서.
This remark caused a rift between Woochi and Reng-yi, leading to their first fight over the woman. When they finally reached the woman's home, Ring-yi, unaware of the flute's true power, wanted to give it to her as a keepsake. Woo-chi, of course, refused and was about to find another item when the back door suddenly opened. Woo-chi used force to warn the head of the household not to trouble the woman, or else there would be dire consequences. With that, the matter with the woman was settled, but unbeknownst to Woo-chi, his teacher had already been attacked. Earlier, while Wadam was tending to a wound that had reopened, the demon sealing jar began to tremble violently. Just as he braced himself for an attack, he noticed green blood dripping onto the ground. Wadam was stunned to realize the green blood was coming from his own hand. Woo-chi's teacher had guessed correctly. Wadam was indeed a demon hiding among the Taoists. At that moment, the disciples brought tea as an offering. One of them inadvertently noticed the green blood on Wadam's hand, and that small detail sealed their fate. Wadam killed them and then returned to the old Taoist sanctuary. After the old Taoist drank the tea, Wadam used a thin rope to launch a sneak attack, slowly hanging him from the ceiling. However, Wadam underestimated the old Taoist's strength.
이제야 그대가 누구인가를 알겠는가? 나는 와담이고 내가 비리의 주인이다. 이제 와서 비리의 주인이 무슨 필요가 있겠는가? 아무리 표은 대덕이라 한들.
Though he couldn't overpower the old Taoist in combat, the poison Wadam had previously slipped into the tea eventually succeeded in killing him. But what Wadam didn't anticipate was that the other half of the prophecy flute wasn't with the old Taoist. Frustrated, Wadam framed Woochi and his companions for the old Taoist's death and the flute's disappearance. When Woochi and Ring-yi returned home, a string of Buddhist prayer beads suddenly coiled around their feet. Woochi couldn't believe it. How could his powerful teacher have been killed? It wasn't until he saw his teacher's belongings scattered on the ground that the full weight of regret hit him. If only he hadn't snuck out, perhaps his teacher would still be alive. Suddenly, a fan struck Woochi, knocking him to the ground. The appearance of Wadam made everything clear. He was the murderer. Ring-yi was also targeted by the three sorcerers, who sealed him inside a painting. As Woochi mourned over his teacher's belongings, he noticed a line of 4 characters, his teacher's final message to him. Though he didn't understand the meaning at the time, those 4 characters would later help him survive a life-or-death situation. Before Woochi could contemplate the message, the sorcerers cast a spell that began to pull him in as well. At the last moment, Woochi managed to snatch the prophecy flute from Wadam's waist. It was this flute that would bring peace to the world for the next 500 years. Since Wadam couldn't retrieve the flute, which was his greatest weakness, he devised a long-term plan. 500 years later, the demon that had been sealed in the jar escaped. The 3 foolish sorcerers, still powerless and unable to contact Wadam, decided to release Woochi to help them capture the demon. But Woochi, having been sealed away for 500 years by these very sorcerers, was not about to agree to their request so easily. It wasn't until one of the sorcerers offered an enticing condition that Woochi reluctantly agreed.
연관대성 플러스 권념대장.
플러스 관련돼서 그런 벼슬을 받아도 될까?
됩니다. 가실까요, 두목님?
Since the demons were specifically targeting Woochi, he had no choice but to join forces with them. The problem, however, was that without the talismans, they were no match for the demons. The talismans were with Ring-yi, but the painting that sealed him had been lost when the sorcerers moved their home. Faced with a demon attack from all sides, Woochi had no choice but to take a leap of faith and hope for the best. Fortunately, at the critical moment, he was summoned by the sorcerers. Even so, he couldn't escape the demon's relentless pursuit. After a harrowing escape, the battered and nearly unrecognizable vehicle finally reached its destination. The immortals found Ring-yi's painting, and he was finally released from his seal. Meanwhile, Woochi was still being chased by the demons. Luckily, Ring-yi arrived just in time to save him. Once Woochi got his hands on the talisman, the entire dynamic shifted. He pulled out the talisman, and suddenly, another identical Woochi appeared, then a third, and soon an entire crowd of Woochi clones. This perfectly embodied the Taoist principle of 1 begets 2, 2 begets 3, and 3 begets all things. With the Woochi army assembled, the real fight began. battle only paused when Rengi managed to send the female demon flying with a single swing of his staff, and Woochi shot an arrow that hit the male demon as he tried to flee. However, they were shocked to realize that both demons had managed to escape. During the chase, Woochi's stylish move led him to get hit by a bus, allowing the female demon to escape as well. After briefly losing consciousness, Woochi tried to brush it off as if nothing had happened, but what he never expected was to encounter the woman he had met 500 years ago. As the saying goes, absence makes the heart grow fonder, and after 500 years of being single, Woochi saw every woman as beautiful, yet, the woman didn't recognize him and thought the bus accident had left him brain damaged. Woochi, undeterred, insisted on touching her face, while Rengi, with his sharp sense of smell, also recognized her as the same woman. After the woman left, they continued their search for the female demon. In a funny twist, Woochi, trying to blend in, swapped clothes with a group of bikers, adopting a more modern, flashy look. They tracked the demon to an underground nightclub, a place that was entirely foreign to them. Woochi struggled to comprehend the scene, but Rengi fit right in, sniffing around and dancing joyfully, unable to contain his excitement. Woochi made his way to the women's restroom on the second floor, where he discovered the severely injured female demon. The sorcerers finally managed to capture her and seal her in the demon sealing jar. As they headed downstairs, they were met with a rather shocking sight. Rengi was showing off and acting foolishly. Woochi snapped his fingers, instantly transforming Rengi back into his original form. Woochi and Rengi stumbled upon a crucial piece of information on the news, a lead on the long-lost bronze sword. They hurried to the location mentioned in the report, only to find it sealed off by the police. The modern identification system posed an unexpected challenge for them.
신원을 확인해 주시기 바랍니다. 신원을 확인해 주시기 바랍니다.
But once inside the warehouse, they turned the place upside down and finally found the bronze sword. Rengi also found a photo of Wadam, but in his excitement over the sword, he didn't pay much attention to it. The discovery of the bronze sword thrilled them because with both the demon-revealing mirror and the bronze sword, Uchi could become the ultimate Taoist master, and Rengi might even become fully human. Meanwhile, the two sorcerers uncovered a lead on another demon. Just as they were about to contact Uchi, they experienced a sudden fall. Thankfully, Uchi and Rengi were summoned just in time, preventing disaster. Empowered by the bronze sword, Uchi easily defeated the demon, and the sorcerers sealed it back into the jar. But to Uchi's surprise, the sorcerers then tried to betray him, attempting to seal both Uchi and Rengi into a painting as well. Fortunately, Uchi had anticipated their treachery. He used the bronze sword to cut through the shackles binding Rengi's feet. Free from the control of the three sorcerers, Uchi and Rengi were finally their own masters. However, what Uchi didn't know was that the true mastermind was about to make a move against him. A bald sorcerer, while changing clothes in a chapel, was suddenly called out by a woman. The appearance of this woman caused the demon sealing jar to tremble violently. Realizing something was wrong, the sorcerer rushed out to contact the others, but it was too late. The demon had escaped. Wadam's timely arrival reassured the sorcerers, but what they didn't know was that the woman was actually Wadam in disguise. Wadam's plan was to capture the demon in front of everyone, further earning their trust to ensure the smooth execution of his future schemes. Meanwhile, Uchi and Rengi, now unrestrained, quietly sought out the woman, hoping to rekindle old feelings. Unfortunately, the woman's memory had been sealed, and she didn't remember them at all. Disappointed, they left, with Rengi eager to see what he looked like as a human, but when he looked in the mirror, he was still just a dog. Feeling deeply betrayed by Woochi, Rengi's resentment grew, and he angrily parted ways, deciding to seek Wadam's help to become human. Woochi grabbed Rengi, who revealed that he had spotted Wadam at the warehouse during the news broadcast. Finally, Woochi had a lead to avenge his teacher. He tracked down the tycoon in the photo and, under threat, demanded information about Wadam. The tycoon, terrified, could only confess that Wadam's whereabouts were as elusive as a ghost. Meanwhile, Wadam had captured Rengi and was forcing him to take a pill that could either transform him into a human or, with a single curse, cause him immense pain. Wadam's plan was to use Rengi to steal Wuchi's talisman. Tempted by the prospect of becoming human, Rengi didn't refuse but instead slyly approached Woochi and successfully stole the talisman.
다 가져왔는데 하나 도장 빌려나 되는 거죠 저도 그죠?
고작 한약 하나 먹었다고 어떻게 개가 사람이 된다더냐.
Wadam then found the woman and, without hesitation, had her drink his demonic blood. He ordered her to lure Woochi into a final confrontation. Woochi, unaware, fell into Wadam's trap, regretting not heeding his teacher's advice to stay away from the woman. Now, he was reaping the consequences.
죽을 자리로 데려간.
At this critical moment, the woman looked into the demon-revealing mirror and was shocked to see that she wasn't herself, nearly falling off the building in her surprise. Woo-chi, with one last hidden talisman, had to choose between saving the woman and confronting Wadam. He chose to save the woman, and as expected, Wadam seized the opportunity to take the half of the prophecy flute from Woo-chi and handed it to the sorcerers. With the sorcerers' combined efforts, the broken flute was finally restored. Just as they were about to hand the flute over to Wadam,
트레이 저놈이
부채 좀 봐봐. 화담이 스승님을 죽였어, 이 바보들아!
infuriated, Wadam swung his fan at Reng-yi, but a mysterious force blocked the blow. Wadam was stunned, not knowing who was behind this. He quickly realized it was Woo-chi, who was lying in the water, his hands forming a spell. Woo-chi had reached a new level of mastery, abandoning his reliance on physical talismans and casting spells directly just as his teacher had foretold. He had become a true Taoist master. Woo-chi then transported himself and the woman to a film set, where he and Wadam engaged in an epic battle. From clashing fire and water spells to close combat, the fight was intense. However, Wadam inadvertently harmed himself with the very flute he had used. The sound of the flute awakened a great deity, who pierced Wadam's body with a peach blossom branch. To everyone's astonishment, the woman was revealed to be the hidden incarnation of this deity. Woo-chi, now stronger than ever, continued his fierce battle with the weakened Wadam, and they both tumbled into a surreal illusion, a scene they had experienced before. As Woo-chi recognized the broken jar on the ground, he realized they were in a dream. Remembering the 4 characters his teacher had left him, Woo-chi grabbed a bow and shot an arrow at the chain case, just as his teacher had predicted. As the blood flowed from the case, Woo-chi knew his teacher's foresight had saved him once again. In the end, Wadam was sealed into a painting, and Woo-chi reluctantly forgave Reng-yi for his betrayal. But just as Reng-yi thought all was well, a single sentence from Woo-chi sent him spiraling into despair.
너 암컷이야.
내가 왜 암컷이야?